Today is the 9th of Adar, and my grandfather, Rabbi Fulgen, he loved every holiday, especially loved Hasidic holidays, but his favorite day of all days of the year was the 9th day of Adar. He was actually there many years ago. I don't know what year was it, 1940, when the previous Rebbe came to America 73 years ago, 83 years ago. He was there when the boat arrived, and that was the biggest news in town at the time. And every year he celebrated, he invited his friends, he sent letters to all of his friends, like Rosh Karlbach, Zalman Schechter, all the old-time Chassidim. Actually, Zalman Schechter was my grandparents' shadchan. He arranged their shidduch. So he invited all his friends. It was a very, very special day for him. I think one of the reasons it was so special for him was because the previous Rebbe gave a statement shortly after he arrived here, which gave over a sentiment. The sentiment he gave over was, America is no different. The simple meaning of that sentiment was, just like Hashem is in Europe, and the Torah is in Europe, and now America is the golden Medina, the golden country where everything is different. So the previous Rebbe came and he said it, but he began a network of many organizations that started then and continues to today, that showed America isn't different, and that's possible that the Torah and the mitzvahs and Hashem are eternal in all places and all times, and it made him feel connected. It was very special for him this day, and it revolutionized really America this day. So this is also not just an event that happened then and continues to bear fruit today, but also the sentiment that he said has a very strong message, a very profound message for each of us in our lives. The title of this week's Torah portion, Tetzaveh, means to be connected. And everyone has different times they feel more connected. Some people feel connected when they study Torah. Some people feel connected when they give charity. Some people feel connected when they pray. And we have our American moments, if you will, and we have our European moments. We have the moments where we're across the ocean, that Hashem is an ocean away from us. And the 9th of Adar is about connecting the dots, and not to feel that, not to keep things, the truths that we believe in to be something that's relegated to various times and places, but to reveal that truth and that faith we have in Hashem in all places and all times. That's actually the title of the additional Torah portion that we read this week. We need to remember what Amalek did to you. The word Amalek is related to the word to sever, Molak, to sever the body from the head. The role of Amalek is to chop off the head. What physically Amalek tries to destroy us, but spiritually, the Chassidic masters explain, Amalek is all about taking the ideals that you know to be true, the things you know in your heart that are real, and to say this isn't relevant now, this isn't relevant here, and to sever what you believe in your idealism from your character and from your behavior. And the 9th of Adar in Pasha Zachar is all about the opposite, about letting that piece of godliness that's in your heart and let it spread. Let it go from Egypt to Israel. Israel is called the good and spacious land, and leaving spacious land as opposed to Egypt, which means confined, is to let the things you believe in to spread and to envelop you and to live with it. Just to begin with a story which I just heard from a good friend of mine, Rabbi Yossi Sobel from Crown Heights, originally from good old hometown of Worcester, Massachusetts. Every Friday he tries to go, I think, I'm not so familiar with New York, I just know he said down the Jackie, so whatever, for me that could be anywhere. He goes down the Jackie and he goes to some offices every week, the same people, and he puts on film with them. And one week he had a little more time, about 2 months ago, and he decided he's going to visit other people. He has some more time, so he stopped. He took the Jackie a few exits earlier than where he needed to go, and he stopped off. It was a very non-Jewish neighborhood, very Hispanic neighborhood. But he saw, as he's driving, he saw a mezuzah in one of the companies there. So he stops off at this company, and sure enough, there's a Jewish woman who is a proprietor of this company, and she opens up to him. She says that she hasn't spoken to her son in over a decade, and this really bothers her because she's alone and she's living by herself. Her older children already gotten married, and this son hasn't gotten married yet, and very close. She feels very close to him. But this son is not only not talking to her, he's not talking to anyone in the family. There was a very bad divorce, and her husband was very abusive. So her son, after they got divorced, he basically left the family and he left Judaism. And he moved here to Los Angeles, and she was very distraught. And she said the whole Tehillim every Shabbos, entire Tehillim, asking Hashem just her son should talk to her, just her son to talk to her. Anyways, she gave my friend a little donation for the yeshiva that he works in, and then he says to her, listen, you participated in the Rebbe's institution. That makes you a partner with the Rebbe. And I'm going to ask the Rebbe for a blessing for you. I'm going to write a letter to the Rebbe and ask what's your son's name. She wrote it down, her son's name, her name. I'm going to ask her for a blessing. So, a month later, again he had some time. Again it's Friday. Again he goes down to Jackie. Again he stops off at her office. You won't believe what happened. She says, 2 weeks ago, my son went to a 7-Eleven in Los Angeles. What do you get in 7-Eleven Los Angeles? What do you buy in 7-Eleven?
Obviously hot dogs, right?
Obviously a Slurpee. You can't buy hot dogs unless you live in Muncie. They don't even call it hot dogs in these 7-Elevens. So he gets a Slurpee, and he comes back with his cherry Slurpee, and he's going back to his car, and he has his dog in his car, but all of a sudden the car isn't there and the dog isn't there. He calls the police, LAPD comes, reports, searching, nothing. And he knows that every hour that passes, less of a chance he's going to get his car back, less of a chance, more important to him, is to get his dog back. And he was hard to pray, as he hadn't prayed in a long time. He prayed to Hashem, Hashem, I promise you, if you bring back my dog, which for me is like family, I will call my mom. I will come closer to my mother, to my parent. So the LAPD calls him the next day. Apparently these guys who stole the car, trying to push the car onto the highway, on the 10 highway, and the cops caught them. And after I didn't catch them, they just got the car, they ran away, but the dog wasn't there. They searched a little longer, and they found the dog. So the mother says, you don't understand. 2 weeks ago, my son called me, and he's calling me every night. We're talking for 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours every night. You don't know what kind of a life this is now for me to get back to be reunited with him. So I'm just thinking about the guy holding the cherry Slurpee on that lonely night and turning to Hashem and asking Hashem to help him and identify with him. I identify with him, and I think we all do. We all have questions in our life, things we understand, things we don't understand, things that make us shake our heads, say, why is this happening? What's going on? There was a jester in the time of the Alter Rebbe, a badchan, who performed at weddings. He would say jokes. So he comes to this wedding, and the Alter Rebbe is there, and he says a joke to the Alter Rebbe. He says, they say you're very smart. They say you're a great miracle worker. He all these wonderful things about you. But really, he tells the Alter Rebbe, there's not much of a difference between me and you. Why? He says, listen, whatever I know, you know. Whatever you don't know, I don't know either. There are just some things that you know that I don't know. Very small difference. So the Alter Rebbe, the way the story is told, he went into a state of spiritual rapture after hearing that. There's depth. There's depth to what that person said. And the depth is that there's more of life that we don't understand than the part we do understand. There's a lot more that we don't know than we do know. And this brings us to the story of Purim. On the mitzvah of Purim, we know there are 4 mitzvahs of the day. They all start with the Mem, Mishleach Manas, and gifts to our friends, Tanas Avyonim, gifts to the poor, and Mikra Megillah, to hear the Megillah, and Mishta V'Simcha, to celebrate. And astonishingly, we all know the Torah says to celebrate on Purim until you cannot differentiate between blessed is, I won't get this part wrong, blessed is Mordechai and cursed is Haman. I said it right this time. You're okay. Anyways, you're supposed to celebrate until you can't tell the difference. Until you drink, till you can't tell the difference. And the obvious question is, what's the point of that? You're supposed to think that the hero is the villain and the villain is the hero. Why? The Sfas Emes, interestingly, says, it says in the Talmud, feel carefully, you're supposed to celebrate until you cannot distinguish. But don't reach that point. Stop there. Once you realize you're going to reach a state where you cannot distinguish, stop, put on the brakes, stop drinking. Okay, so drink up to that point, then stop. No, so what does that exactly mean? Like, think about it practically. You have like 4 cups of mashke. Okay, this one's okay. This one's okay. Oh, I went past the line just now. Okay, how are you supposed to know? You can't really know. What does Sfas Emes mean? And also, this is taken in a simple sense. Judaism is all about the mind controlling the heart, not just doing things because you want, doing the right thing. The whole point is to know what's right and what's wrong, and to do what Hashem wants you to do. Why all of a sudden is this Purim where we're doing the opposite? You're supposed to not know the difference between what's right and what's not right. How does that make any sense? So I'm going to share with you a teaching of the same Alter Rebbe that can really open up our lives and live in a whole different way, in a very amazing way. But before we do, let's learn a little bit more about Purim in general. Purim, we know, the Zohar says, is greater than Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is called a day that's only like Purim, but Purim is better. Purim is higher. Not only is Purim better than Yom Kippur, more, the Talmud says that when Mashiach will come, all of the holidays that we celebrate now will be considered negligible. Negligible, the Talmud says, it's like lighting a match when the sun's shining. Who notices a match when the sun's shining? All the other holidays are going to be considered negligible because Mashiach has come. There will be the resurrection of the dead. It will be such an amazing celebration. Who's going to even notice that it's Pesach, that it's Sukkot? Every day will be like Pesach and Sukkot. It'll be more than Pesach and Sukkot, except for one. One holiday outshines them all, and that holiday will be significant even after Mashiach comes. And that is the story and the celebration of Purim. So let's go back to the story and try to figure out why is this greater than Yom Kippur, and even after Mashiach comes, it's considered to be so significant. So we all know the story. Achashverosh, in the 3rd year of his reign, he makes a big party, he invites everyone, he celebrates, and after he is celebrating for a couple of years, he gets drunk, and 180 days was the party. He gets so drunk and he asks a very disgusting thing. He asks his wife, the queen, to appear naked before him. She refuses, and he asks his advisors what to do, and his advisors say to off with her head or be burnt alive, according to some commentaries. So Vashti is killed, and then they have to find a new queen. So what does Achashverosh do? He asks his advisors say, look for someone who's beautiful for you, and it takes 4 years until they finally discover Esther. Esther isn't really a good candidate. First of all, you know how old Esther was? Esther was 75. Second of all, not only was she 75, the Talmud says Yirak says so she wasn't that beautiful, according to one opinion. Her face was green. So she's 75-year-old green Jew. Yellow. Okay. Either way, not that appealing. And this is the one who wins the beauty contest. And then Haman comes, and Haman makes the worst decree ever against the Jewish people. Hitler Yimach Shemo had in his bunker, he had a map of the world and a list of all the Jews, the amount of Jews in each country. And that was his goal, to destroy all the Jewish people. But the difference between Hitler and Haman is that Haman actually had a plan to make this work, that all Jews should die in the same day. Yimach Shemo, he wasn't going to kill all the Jews, he could always escape to another country. Here the decree was to destroy all the Jewish people. And Mordechai wears sackcloth and ashes. The Talmud says, the Megillah says, he knew what happened. I mean, everyone knew what happened. What does it mean? Mordechai, Yodad, Kosher, Nasa. He knew all that had happened. What's the big deal? Everyone knows what happened. Who didn't know what happened? Everyone, all the Jewish people were distraught about what happened. So the explanation of what Mordechai knew was not just he knew what happened, he knew why it happened. He knew that because of the meal that the Achashverosh had served and the Jewish people's participation at the meal, they were liable to be to receive punishment from on high. The different opinions of Talmud what the issue was. One opinion of Talmud was they enjoyed the meal of that wicked person, which chassidus explains means that it wasn't just that they ate non-kosher or they ate a meal which they were using the vessels of the Holy Temple. It was more that they felt so good to be invited by Achashverosh. They felt safe in the hands of Achashverosh. They didn't realize that we are just like a sheep in the hands of 70 wolves, and the only reason we're alive is because of a big shepherd. So by placing their trust in the wolves, they pushed away the shepherd's benevolence, so to speak, and they're left to the designs of the wolves. And according to another opinion, there was idolatry. Mordechai knew the root cause of the sin, and therefore he knew that the way to fix this wasn't by diplomacy in the government. Rather, he knew the way to fix this was to get to the root cause and inspire everyone to do teshuvah. And after that was addressed, he has to also make an effort in nature as well. And that is when he calls for Esther. And Esther sends a message to Mordechai, actually, what's going on. And Mordechai sends back a message to Esther and he tells her, you have to go to the king. You have to ask the king to take away this decree. And what does Esther respond? Everybody knows, it's famous in the whole country, that anyone who has not been summoned to the king and appears in his royal court, he will immediately be killed. He or she immediately be killed. So, watch out. No, that's someone else's cup. Don't worry, it's all good. So he knew. Okay. L'chaim Baruch. Thank you. L'chaim Baruch. Thank you, Rabbi Zalman. Thank you, Rabbi Yosef. L'chaim Baruch. Okay. So Esther says to Mordechai, you got to be kidding. I can't go to Achashverosh. I haven't been called in 30 days. I have an idea, Mordechai. Let's wait a little bit. Let's wait. Why should I go to Mordechai Achashverosh right now? He hasn't called me in 30 days. He's upset at me. Now, the decree to destroy the Jewish people is going to be in the 13th of Nisan. We got lots of time till then. Why should I go to him now? Doesn't make any sense. 13th of Adar is a lot of time. Why should I go to him right now? We got some time. Maybe he will suddenly have a change of heart. Is not a good idea. So Mordechai sends back to her, don't think you'll be saved. He tells her 3 messages. Message number 1, tells her, don't think that you will be saved among your brethren, among all the Jewish people, just because you're the queen. You see what the king did to the previous queen. You're not going to be saved just because you're the queen. Number 2, he says to her, the Jewish people are an eternal nation. They'll for sure be saved. The only question is whether you'll have the merit to do this. So he tells Esther, you will lose the merit to do this unless now is your chance. This will happen with or without you. And third of all, he tells Esther, maybe, just maybe, this is the reason you were chosen to be queen. Those are the 3 messages he tells Esther, and Esther responds. She says, okay, I'll go to the king Asher Kados against the rules, and Kasher Avati Avarti, and if I meant to die, I'll die. The commentaries explain, when Esther said, I'm going to go to the king against the rules, it doesn't only mean against the rules of the royal government, it also means against the rules of the Torah. She was married, according to some opinions, at that time to Mordechai, and how she's going to Achashverosh in the first place. She's not allowed to be with another man. And the answer is, the Gemara says that she was passive, she was taken against her will. But here, if she would go voluntarily and thereby show agreement to her marriage to Achashverosh, this would put into question her marriage with Mordechai. And actually, some commentaries say that when it says in the Megillah that the Jewish people, after the end of the story, had joy and happiness and gladness and honor, everyone celebrated except for Esther. Esther didn't celebrate because she was forbidden to her husband, according to some commentaries. And no, you stop, please. No, thanks. So Esther was forbidden to her husband after the story. Don't. And that's why she didn't celebrate. And that's why we call it Megillas Esther. Why call it Megillas Esther? Because the incredible sacrifice that she had to make this miracle happen. The question is, what pushed her to go to Achashverosh? Mordechai told her 3 messages, but the 3rd message especially seems problematic. What was the 3rd message? He says, who knows, maybe. When you want to convince someone to do something, you tell them maybe. Maybe it's a good idea for you to do this. You want to convince someone to do something, you tell them, you're the guy, you're the one we need. You're the only one who could be the chazan, Alex. Right? That's whatever. That's when you get to their attention. When you say you're the only guy, you say, well, there's many chazanim, and maybe you could be the chazan too. It's not so convincing. So why did Mordechai use such an unconvincing maybe? What was he saying? So there's a beautiful explanation, but before we get to the explanation, let's go a little bit more to understand. Let's go a little deeper. There was a guy who was saying Tachnon, but he wasn't really focused. He was looking around, and someone sees he's not really focused. He's looking at his phone, he's looking up, he's looking down, looking around. He finishes saying Tachnon. Another guy walks over to him and says, listen, when you knock on the door, someone's at home, so they could open the door for you. But if there's nobody at home, if there's no man behind in the house, they can't open the door. You're knocking on the door. When you say Hashem Bagan, you're knocking. But if there's nobody there, there's no way to open up. There's no way to open up. So let's knock a little bit on the door and understand, ask very, very fundamental questions that come into our head all the time. What are we doing here? Just like Mordechai, just like Esther had this question of why was she in the scenario that she was in and what she needs to do. There was this guy, his name is Raphael Samuel, lived in India, he's a lawyer, and he took his parents to court. Why take his parents to court? Here's Alman. Took his parents to court because how dare they give birth to him? This wasn't San Francisco, it was in India. They took him to court. How dare they give birth? So, and as he's prosecuting, giving all of his arguments, the judge turns to the parents. What do you have to say? And the father says, "Listen, actually, before he was born, we asked him if he wanted to be here. He didn't answer, so we assumed that he was okay with it." So it's really hard for us to imagine, even though we know we were a certain amount of years old and we weren't there before. It's hard for us to imagine us not being here. It's also hard for us to imagine after 120 years how that's possible, because when we're here, we still feel so present. But Hashem chose for us to be here at this time in this place, and we wouldn't ask to be born. We didn't ask for. Not only didn't ask for to be born, we didn't ask to be a boy or a girl. You want to be a boy or a girl. You want to be smart. You want to be silly. You want to be tall. You want to be short. We won't even ask what color eyes we want to have, and many other things that happen to us that weren't our choice. Even our desires that we have. We have lots of desires. You want chocolate. You want a car. You want this. Those are things Hashem built into you that you want, that you have to want, because He made you that way. And the question is, why did Hashem make us with all this complication? And it's a question of, I'm here and all these things going on. What is it for? You see something though. You see something amazing about. You speak to this philosophy professor. He gave a test to his students after 4 years in his class, final exam. Test is like this: 4 years preparing for this last final test. Questions, expecting to have questions through the roof. There's only one question on the test. Question is, why? Everyone starts to write this and that and up and down. What's the guy asking? Everyone fails the test, except for 2 people. One person got a B and one person got an A. The first one wrote, because. And the second one wrote, why not? Why not? So we have all kinds of things going on in our life that we don't understand. More that we don't understand. The stuff we do understand too. And Hashem gives us things we know what they're for. Hashem gives us a geshmak yingel like Reb Zalman, in order to teach the torah and to raise his good midas. There's a purpose to understand. Hashem gives a person parnassa. He knows what it's supposed to be used for good things. There's a lot more that we don't know. And but you see though, that when you look in your body, you look at the way Hashem built you, you know that you matter. Doctors know more than anyone else how amazing the human body is. Think about this. In every human body, there are veins. You stretch them out. There's 160,000 kilometers of veins in each person. And if 2 people, they just tie their veins together, can make a rope that goes all the way to the moon. There are every single day born in a body millions and millions of blood cells. There's 15 million blood cells born every second, and 15 million blood cells dying every second. Your blood cells, your red blood cells, stay in your body for 120 days. And during that time, they travel 120 million kilometers. In the 120 days, in the first 25 seconds in your body, they travel through the body already once. And they stay in your body until they travel 120 million kilometers. In each blood cell, there are 300 million molecules of what's it called? Hemoglobin. Thank you. And hemoglobin also is compromised of other things. Also, it goes, and so you see, even a human being, you make a telephone, you make a computer, you invest time, you make an app, you invest time, you invest energy. You have a purpose. So you see the Eibishter, so to speak, is investing a lot in creating each of us. And when you think about this deeply, this is important, you actually feel that Hashem needs me for something and there's a purpose in why I'm here. And when you have that perspective, you don't feel depressed, you don't feel sad, you feel an amazing feeling that you are on a mission from Hashem and you have a reason to be here. That it's a transformative thought that Hashem made you and He needs you and He wants you to do something. And even though you don't know everything about the mission, you do know that you are on a mission. And it's a secret, and you don't know the reason for everything. But there is a mission. And look at each of us in our own lives. Think about your past and how you got here, where you are. There's a million things that you didn't know were going to happen. And the same as you think you know what's going to happen in the future. There's a lot of stuff we have no idea. We don't. But we can't understand. Why can't we understand? We can't. I mean, it's not a question why you don't understand Hashem. Why is it not a question? The Zohar says this. The Zohar says, no thought can grasp it. How do people understand no thought can grasp it? The simple way people understand it is, take all the minds of people together and put them all into one huge brain, and you have all the minds of all of history. Will they understand more about Hashem than a foolish person, than a complete imbecile? No, because Hashem's his wisdom is infinite. That's the way people generally translate the Zohar. The Zohar means a lot more than that. The Zohar doesn't just mean that Hashem's wisdom is infinite and our wisdom is finite. Hashem created wisdom in the first place. Hashem created intellect, how intellect works. 2 plus 2 was 4 is a creation of Hashem. It didn't have to be that way. Hashem could have created the world. 2 plus 2 was 5. The whole idea of intellect and how intellect was created was just a creation of Hashem. Hashem is beyond intellect. So, in our lives, we say there's a cause and there's effect, and causes make effects happen. In Hashem's world, in the real world, causes don't make effects. Hashem decides this should happen first, this should happen second, and it has nothing to do with what He needs, what in our minds makes sense. It's not possible, because Hashem is beyond. Hashem created logic. Look at the story of the Megillah. When did the miracle really start? When did the miracle begin?
The king couldn't sleep.
Earlier. Huh?
The king could not sleep.
Earlier than that. The real miracle begins when Vashti was killed. When Vashti was killed. Imagine the Jewish people are there sitting at the meal, and they're sinning in a way that they deserve to be punished. And that's when Hashem is orchestrating their miraculous salvation. Shows how little we know about what's going on. And this is what Mordechai told Esther. This is the punchline. I'll let you guys go in 4 minutes. No? Keep on going? All right. This is what Mordechai told Esther. Mordechai told Esther like this. Mi yodeya. It sounds like he's asking her a question. Who knows? How could he not know? Everybody knows. What are the chances the 75-year-old person was chosen to be the wife of Achashverosh after 4 years? Obviously, there's a deeper meaning over here. Why did Mordechai say who knows? So chassidus explains that who actually is like a noun. Who is someone called who? Hashem is called who. And why is Hashem called who? Because Hashem is atik. Because Hashem is infinite. Hashem is beyond creation. The word who denotes Hashem's transcendence. Hashem is completely beyond everything. Who knows? Mordechai was establishing this is not something that can be explained. This is the way it really is. There are some things that are beyond understanding, and this is one of them. You cannot know why, but this is the fact that you were chosen for this mission. And that's also the reason why me is numerically equivalent to 50. There are 50 gates of understanding. Mordechai is telling Esther that the secret of your mission, just like I don't understand why Hashem created me, I don't understand the whole meaning of my soul's mission, but I do know that this, Mordechai told her, this is your mission. Yeah, I don't know why, but this is your mission. Rabbi Emmanuel Shachat, all the shalom, the Rebbe asked him to translate the Tanya, different parts of the Tanya, and at one point, it was going back and forth, the Rebbe asked him to do more, and he wasn't able to do more. The Rebbe said to him a very interesting line. The Rebbe said, I don't know why this has to do with you. I don't know why this has to do with you. It sounds like it's something that Mordechai said. This has to do with your soul, but it's not something that is known why it has to do with your soul. In a similar way, if you feel you have the power to do something, you have the ability to do something, there's a need to get, that something has to get done. What did Esther say? I wasn't called to the king for 30 days. A person may say in a similar way, I'm not called, Hashem doesn't, I'm detached, I'm disconnected from Hashem. I'm not in it. So what does Mordechai tell Esther? Go to the king. Just go to the king. You have to go to the king. Don't ask why. The moment you ask why, you're losing something. The whole point of you not knowing, why does Hashem not want us to know? Why? What's the point of, there's a point of not knowing. The point of not knowing is in order to reach something inside of ourselves that's higher than logic and reason. If you know, if your connection is based upon something you know, you're not getting in touch with your deepest self. Not getting in touch with Hashem's, so to speak, deepest self, ways transcendent. Hashem created logic. So therefore Hashem puts a person in a situation where, who knows it, our own story, our own life story, who knows what's going on? So the reason why Hashem creates the world in a way that we cannot know, because He wants us to have Megillas Esther. What's Megillas Esther mean? Megillah means to reveal. Esther means what's hidden. He wants us to reveal in ourselves that which is hidden. He wants us to reveal something which is beyond logic and reason. And that's the meaning of the celebration of Purim. You're supposed to celebrate till you don't know the difference between blessed and Mordechai and Christos. What does that mean? Let's say you say Mordechai should be blessed because Mordechai is a great guy. Mordechai is a tzaddik. Mordechai is wonderful. Mordechai is kind. Mordechai is wise. Haman should be cursed because. As long as you're saying because, it's external, because it's logical, because it makes sense. Why should Mordechai be blessed? Because Hashem said Mordechai should be blessed. Why should Haman be cursed? Because Hashem said. If you're loving Mordechai because of what Mordechai does, you're only loving what Mordechai does, not Mordechai himself. Hashem wants us to love the essence of Mordechai. Hashem wants us to love him from our essence. Hashem wants us not just to hate Haman because of what Haman does, but to hate the essence of Haman, not because you understand. And that's the meaning of Ad Lo Yoda, to celebrate on Purim, to reach a part of yourself which is higher than logic. To know that there are some things inside of you that are deeper than logic and deeper than reason. You have a power inside of you, a neshama inside of you, the soul inside of you that has a mission that's higher than can be explained. The moment you start asking why, you're losing the point. You're getting it. You're not reaching that part of yourself. That's why Hashem says Lo Yoda. You have to reach something which is higher. Logic is all external. Logic is a creation. So Hashem puts us sometimes in situations where we don't know why, in order to get in touch with that part of us which is higher than logic. And that's the Simcha of Purim is supposed to bring us to connect to that part of us which is devoted to Hashem, Ad Lo Yoda, without any limitations and boundaries. Why should we wait for Purim? I started already today. The whole month of Purim, the whole month of Adar is about Ad Lo Yoda. L'chaim, to realize whatever we're doing, whatever's happening, that we're connected. We can come to the King. Just come to the King, meaning grab the opportunity Hashem sends you. Chaim v'bracha.